I'm 29 years old, living alone in a cramped apartment in San Diego, and I've spent years perfecting one skill, making travel seamless for people who will never remember I exist, booking flights, coordinating hotels, managing last-minute changes for executives who see me as invisible. I thought being indispensable was my quiet strength. I never imagined it would become the exact tool I'd used to dismantle my own family. The moment everything cracked open, I was home in Phoenix, seated at my parents' table with my luggage half ready upstairs. In 2 days, we were supposed to fly to Paris together, or so I believed. My older brother swirled wine in his glass like he owned the room. Then he said it, casual as ordering coffee, "Just make sure you're gone before we head to the airport. It'd be uncomfortable if you showed up trying to come along." My father nodded in agreement. "It's not really your trip anymore." I lifted my glass and said one word. "Understood." Outside, I smiled. Inside, something broke so cleanly it almost felt like freedom. A week later, he'd be standing at an airline counter, face draining of color as the agent told him his tickets didn't exist. No reservation, no flight, nothing. He'd text me in panic. All caps, "Fix this immediately." And I'd be sitting in that same airport with my own boarding pass in hand, my reply already written. But before I show you how one dinner conversation turned into total airport chaos, and the exact message I sent when he begged me to undo it all, tell me, what time is it where you are right now? Where are you watching this from? I want to know how far this family disaster is about to spread. I didn't react right away. That's the important part. If I'd thrown my napkin down or stormed out, it would have just become another story they'd recycle every holiday. Rachel can't handle reality. Rachel's too emotional, so instead, I froze my expression in place and forced myself to keep eating while my mind scrambled to process what he just said. Not your trip anymore. My brother had always been skilled at subtle cruelty, but this was different. He sounded like security removing me from my own existence. "You all right, sweetheart?" My mom asked, her eyes darting between us, clearly sensing tension but refusing to name it. "I'm fine," I said, voice flat. Just caught off guard. He took that as permission to continue. "Don't make this awkward," he said lightly. "This trip's been in the works forever. It's really for Mom, Dad, and, well, the core group." The core group. Like I'd somehow drifted into the outer edges of my own bloodline. I thought I was part of that group when I handled all the bookings. I said, keeping my tone steady. His eyes flickered for just a second, because that was the truth he couldn't say aloud. When my parents finally decided to take their dream vacation to Paris, they came to me. I was the one who found the best fares, juggled rewards points, coordinated connections. Every confirmation email, every record locator, every digital pass listed my name at the top as the primary contact. The one who'd actually charged it all to her card. "We're grateful for your help with that," my dad said, slipping into his diplomatic tone, the one he used when he wanted silence instead of honesty. "That's why I assumed I was included," I replied. My brother laughed, humorless. "Rachel, come on. You're swamped. You live across the state. You've got your little travel gig, your own routine. We didn't want you feeling pressured." Little travel gig? I swallowed the bitter laugh rising in my throat, because if I started, I might never stop. "When exactly did you all decide I wasn't pressured?" I asked. "Before or after I spent 3 nights fixing your seat assignments?" My mom's lips parted like she wanted to intervene, but my brother cut in fast. "Don't turn this into a scene," he said. "I've been planning this Paris thing for years. There are certain expectations." There it was. Expectations, the same word he'd used a decade ago when he convinced my parents I wasn't ready for the summer architecture program in Paris I'd earned a spot in, because Rachel doesn't do well under pressure, and she'll just panic. The program I withdrew from after they cried and told me it was too dangerous, too far, too overwhelming. That same month, he landed his first major sales internship, and everyone raised glasses to his brilliant future, while my acceptance letter sat buried in a drawer. "Let me make sure I understand," I said slowly. "I plan the trip. I book the flights. I pay for the tickets. And then, last minute, you all decide I'm not welcome." No one said unwelcome. My dad protested quickly, glancing toward my brother. "We just thought it might be simpler this way, less complicated." My brother stared directly at me, unbothered. "You're overreacting. It's just a vacation. Don't make everything about you." I looked at the three of them, the people whose approval I'd chased through perfect grades, career milestones, flawlessly planned itineraries, and something settled in my chest like stone. They really couldn't see it. They didn't see me. Not as an equal, not as someone whose work mattered, whose presence had value. Just the girl who handled logistics and stayed invisible. Here's the thing about being the person who quietly holds everything together. You're also the person who knows exactly how to take it all apart. That night, after pretending to be too tired to watch their Paris travel documentary, I went upstairs to my old bedroom and shut the door. The posters were gone, replaced by generic prints, but the dent in the carpet where my desk used to sit was still there. A small ghost of the girl who once believed hard work and loyalty would eventually earn her a place at the table. My phone buzzed. A new message from my brother lit the screen. "Just confirming we're clear. Don't show up at the house Wednesday morning. It'll be awkward with the car situation. We've got it handled." No emoji, no softening, just instructions. Like he was notifying a former employee she'd been cut from the guest list. Have you ever stared at a message so long it stops being words and becomes evidence? Evidence that you were never valued the way you thought. For a moment, the familiar script tried to load. Maybe he didn't mean it like that. Maybe I'm being dramatic. Maybe if I explain calmly, send one more reasonable text, this can be fixed. Then another memory sliced through, me at 19, holding that Paris program acceptance. Him leaning in the doorway saying, "You'd freak out over the language thing. Better let someone else take the spot." 2 days later, he told my parents I'd had a breakdown in private and said I couldn't handle it. They hugged me, relieved I'd come to my senses. I never told them he lied. Never told anyone that the only panic attack I had that summer came after I hit reply and typed, "Thank you for the opportunity, but I must decline." My brother spun the story. I lived with the fallout. He never paid for it. Not once. I opened the email account I used for work clients and pulled up our family's Paris reservation. There it was. 4 tickets from Phoenix to Paris, 1 connection through Dallas, all purchased through my professional booking portal after I called in a favor from an airline rep I'd helped dozens of times. I scrolled through the details, looking at the neat row of names. My parents, my brother, my sister, and me. Because when I first booked it, the plan included all of us. The idea they might leave me behind hadn't even seemed possible yet. A wild thought flickered. I could cancel theirs. I could change everything with a few clicks. Immediately, guilt countered. That would be extreme, petty, cruel. You'd be exactly what they say you are. Dramatic, vindictive, unreasonable. I set the phone down and paced, heart pounding. Then I imagined Wednesday morning, the car pulling away without me, my brother joking about the extra legroom now that Rachel's not coming, my parents laughing politely, relieved there'd be no tension. I imagined the airport photos, the Eiffel Tower selfies, the captions about finally living the dream, while I sat at my kitchen table in San Diego, pretending not to care. And then another picture shoved itself forward. My brother at the check-in desk realizing his ticket wasn't there, my dad's forehead creasing, my mom clutching her passport, all of them turning to the one person who actually understood how travel worked, discovering she'd stopped playing the role they wrote for her. What would you do If the power to make someone finally face the consequences of their cruelty sat in your hands, disguised as a simple modify booking button, I didn't touch the reservation that night. Instead, I opened my notes app and started a list titled Things I Let Slide. It was pointless, but I couldn't stop. 1. He told Mom and Dad I cried over the Paris program when I didn't. 2. He called my first apartment a phase and my career glorified customer service. 3. He told my last boyfriend that dating me was like dating a flight attendant without the perks or uniform, then laughed like it was harmless. 4. Tonight, make sure you're not around. By the time I reached 12, my jaw ached from clenching. I added one final line at the bottom. 13. I never made him feel it. I always absorbed the hit. I lay on my childhood bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to muffled TV sounds downstairs. The travel show host's voice drifted up, warm and smooth. There's nothing quite like seeing Paris for the first time. It can change your life. The words felt like mockery. Paris had tried to change my life once. My brother stopped it. He didn't get to do that twice. Another buzz. This time, a group text. Family Paris trip. My mom had titled it. Photos flooded in. My sister laid out outfits on her bed. My dad printed the itinerary. My brother sent a selfie with his new carry. On, grinning like a kid at Christmas. Underneath, he typed, "Can't wait to escape the chaos for a bit. Just us." No one corrected him. No one wrote Rachel too. I clicked out of the thread and reopened the booking. My fingers didn't shake as much as I expected. Years of training made the process automatic. Verify passenger details, review fare rules, check deadlines. We were well within the window for free changes, thanks to the flexible ticket class I'd chosen for their convenience. The control I'd always used to protect them was now, very clearly, mine. I took a breath and imagined the alternate timelines. In one, I did nothing, wished them a good trip, sent polite texts, swallowed the humiliation like always. In another, I confronted them directly, demanded an apology, begged them to reconsider. Maybe they'd add me back last, second out of guilt, but the power dynamic would stay the same. They'd be granting me a place, not acknowledging it was mine all along. And then there was the third timeline, the one that made my pulse slow instead of race. In that one, I didn't explain. I didn't argue. I simply stopped making their comfort more important than my dignity. I canceled 3 tickets. I kept one. I booked myself on a different itinerary. Same destination, same day, different connection. One that left earlier from a different terminal, already half, paid by my airline credit and work perks. My phone screen glowed with possibility. I heard my brother's voice in my head again. "Don't show up Wednesday, it'll be awkward." Fine, I wouldn't show up. But I'd be gone before they even rolled their suitcases into the airport, boarding my own flight while they discovered their Paris dream had been quietly dismantled by the person they'd treated like a disposable assistant. I hovered over the button and thought about being the bigger person, about forgiveness, about what my therapist once said. Revenge doesn't heal you, Rachel. Maybe it didn't, but letting people walk all over you wasn't healing either. So I clicked. First, I canceled my brother's ticket, rerouting the refund and credits back to my account. Then my dad's, then my mom's. The system processed it with a cheerful spinning icon, as if I'd just changed a hotel room instead of detonating the foundation of our family trip. Finally, I modified my own reservation. New connection through Chicago. Earlier departure. Seat upgrade using the very miles I'd earned booking flights for the same brother who told me not to be at the house. When the confirmation emails landed in my inbox, I stared at them until my eyes blurred. This was it. The line I could never uncross. I locked my phone, pressed it to my chest, and whispered into the dark room, "You wanted Paris without me. Let's see how that works out." Wednesday came wrapped in desert sunlight and fake normalcy. At 7 in the morning, my mom knocked on my door, her voice soft through the wood. "Rachel, you awake?" I shoved my second suitcase, already packed for my own flight, farther under the bed with my foot, and opened the door in a tee, shirt and leggings, hair scraped into a messy bun so I'd look as unprepared as possible. "Yeah," I said, rubbing my eyes like I'd just woken up. "You guys leaving soon?" She smiled, lines of excitement crinkling around her eyes, making her look younger, like the version from old vacation photos. "Your brother wants to get there early," she said. "You know how he is, overprepared. He already checked us in on his phone and printed backup copies of everything." The irony almost choked me. I was the one always accused of overthinking. Yet there he was, feeling safe because of systems I'd quietly built. "Right," I said, overprepared. I followed her downstairs. The house buzzed with departure energy. Suitcases lined up by the door, coffee brewing in the kitchen, zippers zipping as my dad double-checked passports for the 5th time, muttering names under his breath like a spell he couldn't afford to get wrong. My brother strutted in wearing a navy blazer he thought made him look European, and a smug expression that had nothing to do with fashion. "Remember, don't be here at 11, he said casually, like reminding me to take out the trash. "We don't want to trip over you on the way out. The cab's going to be packed." "Don't worry," I replied, leaning on the doorframe. "I won't be." My sister Emma shot me a quick, confused look over her coffee mug. She hadn't said much about the whole "you're not coming" conversation, just went quiet and stayed on her phone, which almost hurt more than if she'd taken his side out loud. "Text me pictures." I told her, meaning it in a way that made my chest tight. "Everything, the hotel, the food, even the boring tourist stuff." She nodded slowly. "You sure you're okay?" she whispered while our dad wrestled a suitcase and our mom fussed with a neck pillow. I met her eyes, really looked at her, and for a second I saw the younger version of us sharing a bedroom, whispering about all the places we'd go someday. "I will be," I said. I didn't add one way or another. My brother slammed the trunk, clapped his hands once, and announced, "All right, Paris crew, let's roll." No hesitation, no glance at me, no space offered. They pulled away at 11:15. My parents waving from the back seat, my mom pressing her hand to the window like she always did when saying goodbye. My dad focused on directions. My brother already tapping on his phone, probably posting something about airport energy and Paris vibes. For people who didn't know the cost of that caption, as soon as the car turned the corner and the engine sound faded, I grabbed the hidden suitcase, shouldered my backpack, and let my polite goodbye face drop. The silence in the house felt different now, not empty, open. I called a rideshare and watched the little car icon crawl toward the house on my screen. My flight left at 1:30, earlier than theirs, out of a different terminal entirely. I timed it down to the minute, built a schedule within their schedule, a shadow trip layered under the one they thought they were taking. On the drive, the driver made easy small talk about vacations, good food in Phoenix, how people seemed lighter heading to the airport. "Paris, huh?" he said when I mentioned my destination. "Going with family." I smiled tightly at the windshield. "Not exactly," I said, something like that. At the airport, I moved like muscle memory in motion. Check in, security, shoes off, laptop out, move forward, scan, repack, follow the signs, no surprises, no delays. Months of coordinating other people's chaos had trained me for this, and there was something almost soothing about slipping into the familiar choreography for myself. When I reached my gate, I picked a seat with a clear view of the departure screen and my watch, but no view of the main terminal entrance. I didn't want to risk running into them, not yet, not when everything was still fragile inside me. My phone buzzed at 12:30, a text from Emma at the airport. "I'm so nervous, lol. Security line is crazy. Wish you were here. This whole thing feels weird without you." For the first time since I'd hit cancel, doubt stabbed through me hard enough to make me suck in a breath. I typed, "You'll be okay, take lots of pictures, promise me you'll try a real quass, not the hotel one." I hesitated, then added, "And if anything feels off, step away and text me." I didn't tell her there was a good chance there'd be no hotel quass. Not today, not on this flight. 10 minutes later, my brother posted in the family thread a photo of what he thought was his boarding pass, cropped artfully with a coffee cup and his wristwatch. The caption read, "Paris, we're coming for you." The screenshot clearly showed the airline logo and the departure time. I zoomed in out of habit and saw it. The small word in the corner that made me bite down on a laugh I couldn't let out. Stand by. He hadn't noticed the change. He'd just assumed everything was the same. That the universe and I would keep bending around him. At 12:58, as my own boarding group was called over the speakers and people started to stand and gather their bags, my phone lit up with a new message. Not in the family thread, just to me. "Rachel, something's wrong. They can't find our reservation. The lady's saying these tickets were canceled. Did you touch something? Fix this." Another came seconds later, the words stacked and sharper. "Fix this now." I looked at the gate agent scanning boarding passes, at the line of people shuffling forward, excited and oblivious, at the jet bridge opening like a mouth, waiting to swallow them into a different life for a week. Then I pictured the scene at the other terminal, my brother raising his voice, my dad confused, pulling out printed papers that no longer meant anything, my mom apologizing to the agent for the mix-up, like it was a minor inconvenience and not the direct result of how they'd treated the one person who could have prevented it. Have you ever felt the balance of power in your life shift with one vibration of your phone, and known that this time you weren't the one about to scramble and save everyone? I stepped out of the boarding line and walked to the window, letting 3 people go ahead of me while I stared down at the tangle of jet bridges and service vehicles on the tarmac. The overhead announcements blurred into a low hum. My phone buzzed again and again, messages stacking on top of each other like dominoes finally starting to fall. From my mom, "Rachel, did you change something? The agent's saying the booking is linked to your account. She keeps pointing at your name." From my dad, "I'm so embarrassed. They're saying the purchase was refunded to your card. Please call me. We can sort this out." And finally, after what must have been an explosion at the counter, my brother, "You think this is funny? They're telling me someone with your login canceled our flights. Do you have any idea what you've done? I have a client dinner in Paris tomorrow. This is my job. Fix it." I could almost hear his voice in the sharpness of the punctuation. The way he'd be leaning forward over the counter, jaw tight, looking for someone to blame who wasn't standing in his shoes. A few months ago, I would have panicked without thinking, sprinted to the nearest empty gate, opened my laptop with shaking hands, spent an hour on hold trying to salvage everything while apologizing for a mistake I'd pretend was mine. I would have eaten the cost, rebooked them, and let them keep their narrative that I was lucky to be in the group chat at all. Instead, I took a slow breath and felt something strange spread through my chest. Calm, steady, grounding, like I'd finally found solid ground after years of living on a trapdoor. My thumb hovered over the keyboard, but I didn't type yet. I owed Emma an explanation before anyone else. Whatever fallout was coming, she deserved more than, a messy version screamed across a check-in desk. I opened our private thread. "Hey," I wrote, "if they're still at the counter, step aside for a second if you can. Somewhere you can read this without them over your shoulder." A minute passed that felt like 10. My boarding group continued to inch forward. "Okay," she replied. "I'm by the bathrooms. What's going on?" Everyone's freaking out. They're saying the airline messed up, but the agent looks like she wants to strangle us. Mom keeps apologizing. Dad's arguing. Logan's just demanding they fix it. I stared at my reflection in the plexiglass. at the woman who looked more like a bystander than the main character of her own story. And I realized this was the moment that would decide which role I kept playing. They're not wrong about the account. I wrote. Everything was booked through me. Every confirmation's in my name. They told me I wasn't welcome. They told me not to be there when the car left. So I made sure I wasn't part of the plan anymore. I canceled their tickets. I kept mine. 3 dots blinked on the screen, then disappeared. Blinked again, vanished. Finally, you're on a flight, boarding in 10 minutes. I replied, different terminal, different connection, same destination. I could almost hear her breathing through the text, the way she did when deciding whether to defend me or stay neutral. Why didn't you tell me? She wrote at last. I swallowed, throat tight. Would you have stopped them? I asked, a long pause, so long I wondered if her phone had died. Then, I don't know. Another message came quickly after, the words uneven, like she'd backspaced a lot before sending. They were awful to you. I didn't say anything. That's on me. I didn't think you'd actually do something like this, Ra. Me neither. I typed, until they made it very clear where they thought I belonged. She sent one last text before going quiet. So what happens now? I glanced at the time. My boarding group was almost finished. The agent called my number again, more firmly. I typed back. Now they deal with the consequences of treating me like I was disposable. And I finally see Paris. I hit send, closed our thread, and finally opened my brother's messages. Yes, I canceled the tickets. I wrote, fingers steady. The refund and credits went back to my card because I paid for them. You told me I wasn't welcome and not to be there when you left. I honored that. You're not my client. I'm not your assistant. You'll have to make your own arrangements. Within seconds, my phone lit up with an incoming call from him. I declined without hesitation. He called again, declined, a third time, declined. Each decline felt like snipping a wire that had been wrapped around my throat for years, one strand at a time. A new text arrived, longer this time, frantic enough I could almost see his hands flying over the keyboard. You're being insane. This is thousands of dollars. You're ruining Mom and Dad's dream trip just to make a point. I'll lose this client, Ra. They'll fire me. You can't seriously be doing this. You can call them and fix it. Just do what you always do. I looked down at the seat number printed on my boarding pass, then back at the door to the jet bridge. The scanner beeped with each passenger, a steady rhythm pulling me forward. For the first time in a long time, I understood there was another option besides obey or explode. I could simply opt out. I could let the consequences stand. I slid my phone into my bag, stepped forward, and handed over my boarding pass. The agent smiled, not knowing she was witnessing a private revolution. The scanner beeped. That tiny sound felt louder than my brother's shouting messages, louder than my parents' disappointment, louder than every time I'd swallowed my own anger to keep the peace. I walked down the jet bridge towards something that, for once, was just for me. No one else's schedule. No one else's expectations. Just mine. The plane hummed to life, and as we taxied down the runway, I finally put my phone on airplane mode. For 10 blessed hours, there'd be no buzzing. No demands, no accusations. Just me, my thoughts, and the strange feeling of finally keeping a promise to myself. Somewhere between Dallas and Paris, though at 37,000 feet, doubt slipped back in through the cracks. I replayed my mom's excited smile, my dad's careful notes, my sister's quiet texts. I pictured them walking back through the Phoenix airport, defeated and humiliated, my brother spewing whatever version made him the victim and me the villain. Maybe in his mind, I had become exactly that. Revenge doesn't feel clean when it's family. It feels like taking off a bandage and realizing the wound underneath is much deeper than you admitted. When we landed at Charles de Gaulle, the cabin filled with the rustle of seat belts unbuckling and the low buzz of returning service on everyone's phones. I waited a full minute before turning mine back on. Messages flooded in. "I can't believe you would do this to us." From my mom, "I thought you were better than this." From my dad, "We're rebooked for tomorrow. It cost a fortune. Your mother is devastated." From my dad again. And from my brother, not even trying to hide his rage, "You've destroyed my reputation. The client's livid. My boss thinks I'm incompetent. When we get home, we're done. Don't bother coming around anymore." I stood in the slow, moving line toward passport control and let their words wash over me. 10 years ago, that would have destroyed me. 5 years ago, I would have collapsed in guilt. But now, I could see the shape of what was really happening. They were finally experiencing discomfort that matched even a fraction of what they'd put me through. And they hated it. My phone buzzed again. This time it was Emma. I told them the truth. She wrote that you booked everything, that they uninvited you after the fact, that they told you not to be there. Mom cried. Dad just sat there. He didn't defend you, but he didn't defend them either. Logan called you crazy. I told him he'd been cruel for years, and this was the first time you ever pushed back. Another message. They're still coming tomorrow. Different route. Cost them almost double. Dad's furious at the airline, but it's not the airline's fault, and he knows it. Mom keeps saying, "We did this." She's right. My chest tightened. Not with guilt, but with something like grief. Grief for the version of my family I'd clung to in my head long after reality contradicted it. The one where they'd see me, apologize, make room without being forced. On the train into the city, I watched the French countryside blur past and finally replied to my parents separately. To my mom, "I love you. You told me I wasn't part of this trip. I believed you. I won't apologize for finally believing you. When you're ready to talk about how we got here, not just what I did, I'll be ready." To my dad, "You've watched him belittle me for years and called it jokes or tension. I won't attend family events where I'm everyone's punchline. If you want a relationship, it has to be different. I'm not a child you can manage out of the way." It took me longer to answer my brother. I walked along the Seine, the air cool against my face, the Eiffel Tower rising in the distance like the punchline of a joke the universe had told twice. The first time, I'd let someone talk me out of it. This time, I was here because I'd refused. Finally, I opened our thread. His last message still glared up at me. "Fix this now." I typed slowly, choosing each word like I was setting down bricks for a new boundary. "No," I wrote. "You told me I wasn't welcome. You've mocked my work, my choices, and my life for years. You turned my opportunities into punchlines. This time, the consequences reached you. I won't fix that. I hope you make it to Paris. I hope you sit with what it took to get here. But from now on, if you want me in your life, it won't be on your terms alone." I hit send. 3 dots appeared, then vanished. Then again, then nothing. Somewhere behind me, a street musician started playing a jazz version of an old American song. The melody weaving through the chatter of strangers in a language I'd once been too afraid to test myself in. I'd been told revenge wouldn't heal me, and maybe it wouldn't. But standing there, alone and whole, and exactly where I'd always wanted to be, I realized something. This wasn't about making my brother hurt the way I'd hurt. It was about finally refusing to hurt myself to keep him comfortable. Maybe one day we'd talk again. Maybe he'd apologize. Maybe my parents would learn to stand up instead of smoothing over. Or maybe we'd stay distant, orbiting each other with polite messages and careful holidays. Whatever happened, the script had changed. I wasn't the disposable extra in their family story anymore. I was the one who booked the next chapter. And if you were me, if someone told you to stay away from the life you helped build, then begged you to save it when it collapsed, would you have hit fix, or finally let them feel what it's like when you walk away?